Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another video for you all. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different to my usual array of movie reviews, and first of all I'm just going to give you a little bit of I'm going to fill you guys in about the new background. As you can see, recently my mum moved into a new flat and I've just come home from uni for the weekend just to stay, and so that's the reason why this isn't the usual background that you guys normally see. But just going to tell you about today's movie as well. My friend Anne, who I've mentioned before in my videos, she always gives me great ideas. She said to me that wouldn't it be a great idea if you did your top 10 worst movies that you've ever seen? And I was kind of a little bit nervous because I don't really want to offend anybody, but the whole point is to share people's opinions and to share my opinions and get them out there. So I said, you know what, why not? That sounds like a good idea to me. So without further ado, here are my top 10 worst movies of all time. Now, just before we start, I just wanted to say that these movies might not seem like the obvious worst movies to you guys because they're only movies that I have seen. For example, don't be surprised if, you know, inherently famous bad movies like Howard the Duck and stuff like that are, you know, missing from this list because I simply haven't seen them. You know, their reputation sort of outweighs them for me, so maybe that's why I haven't seen some of the movies that you might think are the worst movies of all time. But I've collected these movies from a list of, you know, in my brain of the movies that I've seen and thought, oh my gosh, this is a bad movie. That's either from, you know, walking out of the cinema and feeling really, really disappointed, or, you know, watching a DVD and being like, I want to bin this, this is terrible. So without further ado, let's get started. Now these are in no particular order, it's just a sort of my top 10 worst movies, they are not in order. And so my first movie out of the 10 is The Mask, starring Jim Carrey. Now I wanted to get this one over with because it's quite likely that I'm going to get, you know, red for this. A lot of people love this film, and I have to say I'm getting this over with first because I think it is the least bad out of my list. But I'm going really based on what my personal opinion of the movie was. Now loads of people have said, watch The Mask, it's so funny, including my mum. And I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan, so I thought, you know, why not? But when I watched it, I was rather disappointed. I thought, you know, even for the time, with the effects and everything, and it's really cartoonish and cool, it didn't make me laugh as much as I expected it to do. And I think the best thing about the movie as a whole was the whole Cuban Pete section with the dance. I think it was a little bit too slapstick for me all the way through, and it just wasn't for me. I was really disappointed by it, and yeah, I probably wouldn't watch it again, although I might, just to see if it gets any better with the passage of time. But my first impression of it wasn't very good. The next movie on my list is a film called The Vatican Tapes. I watched this recently, it was on TV. It's a horror, and it is based around the coming of the Antichrist, and this sounds like a really cool concept, as it might for a horror film. The problem with it was that it centres around that theme of demonic possession, which has been churned out and churned out and churned out by horror movies galore over the past, you know, 5 or so years. And I have to say, it was very slow to get going. It was quite sluggish, and when the scares did happen, they didn't scare me. They were sort of obvious, you know, sort of, you'd seen them all before. This was no different to anything that I'd seen. It wasn't new, it wasn't exciting, it didn't take a different spin on it. I thought maybe the story was good with her sort of becoming the Antichrist and walking into the world, you know, and nobody knowing and causing all these disasters at the very end, but still, it didn't grip me, and I just thought, when the scares finally happened, they were very lacklustre, so I was very disappointed. The next movie on my list is a movie called Free Jack, and this stems from my era of obsession with the actor Emilio Estevez. I was absolutely obsessed with this man. I watched him in St. Elmo's Fire in the Breakfast Club, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. And I decided to sort of go through that thing of like watching all of his movies, and I heard of this movie called Free Jack, and it stars, you know, Mick Jagger and Anthony Hopkins, and I was like, oh great, okay, we'll give this a try. And it just wasn't very good. I don't think it sort of lived up to expectations. I just thought the whole movie was a little bit of a mess. I thought, you know, they were quite ambitious with the effects, and I know it was like 1992, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just a mess of a movie. And, you know, I really tried to like it because it was an Emilio film, but in the end I just had to accept that it was awful and I should just give up on it because it was really bad. So yeah, Free Jack, an attempt at sci-fi that totally failed, in my opinion. Yours might differ, but there we go. The next movie on my list is a movie entitled Weekend at Bernie's. Now, a lot of people, for a lot of people, this is a cult classic, starring Andrew McCarthy, and I have to say there were a few moments in this film that really did make me laugh. The concept of, you know, hauling a dead guy round for a weekend and having to pretend he was alive. You know, the concept is there, and it could have been really good. I just felt slightly disheartened when I watched it. I was like, again, it was one of those films that fell short of my expectations as a comedy. I expected to be laughing my arse off, and it didn't really happen, and it was disappointing. And there were a few moments that could have, you know, reduced me to a slight chuckle, but really I didn't think the film cut it, and it was just kind of one of those weird, wacky 80s comedies that didn't really come off very well. But that's just my opinion. I know, like, there are some big Andrew McCarthy fans out there, and they probably love this movie, and I'm sorry, it just didn't cut it for me. So there's that. The next movie on my list is a movie entitled Dumb and Dumber 2. This is one of the worst because I went to the cinema to see this when it came out not so long ago, and I was furious when I walked out of the cinema because the first film for me is such a huge deal. I love it. I watched it when I was a kid religiously over and over again. One of my funniest films of all time. It's a comedy classic for me, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's a sequel coming out. I can't believe it. But the problem with this film is that the jokes were kind of reiterated and rechurned out from the first one, and there were some quite prolonged moments where I was thinking, my goodness, this is not funny. There were whole scenes where I just went without laughing, and I was getting to the point where I almost wanted to walk out because it just did not live up to expectations. I thought it was quite a poor choice. And then I was thinking, why did I even go and see this? Why did they even think that they could do a sequel to Dumb and Dumber? Because the first film was so good, in my opinion, so funny. I guess I should have known in a way that the sequel would not live up to it, but sometimes you can't resist going to see a movie that is, you know, a favourite of yours. So yeah, I was not a fan of that. But moving on. The next movie on my list is a movie called Revolution. Now, I'm a huge Al Pacino fan, as most people who know me know. I worship the ground he walks on. He is one of the best actors that have ever lived, in my opinion. But this movie, which is kind of sort of a period drama war thing, is just terrible. Because it was Al, I really wanted it to work, I really wanted it to be fantastic, but I think it was just an array of messy accents and, you know, poorly shot war scenes, and I was just not a fan. It was it really missed the mark, and I was like, oh no, Al, why did you have to star in this, because it's so bad. Just a mess. We won't go into it any more than that, I think. Moving on. The next movie on my list is a movie entitled Breaking Dawn Part 2 of the Twilight Saga. This movie, I don't mind. A lot of people say that the Twilight movies as a whole are terrible. I don't think they are. I think I can watch them, I can enjoy them. But the last one, I have severe problems with, mainly because the child, Renesmee, CGI baby, I couldn't get past that. I couldn't get past the sort of poor CGI construction of that child. I was just like looking at it like, why have you done this? I know she ages fast, so it would have been difficult to have, you know, a sort of a different baby in almost every scene because she's aging constantly, but I was just like, rude. I couldn't get past it. I just thought it was a really sort of glaringly obvious mistake in the movie, and also the fact that basically nothing happened other than, you know, the sort of lead up to this big battle. And I thought the battle was amazing, it was great, and I know in the book that's sort of the way it goes, nothing happens, you know, everything's sort of resolved, but yeah, I just don't see the reason why it was split into two parts, because nothing much happened in the last part and it was kind of an anticlimax for me for the whole series. The next film on my list is a film entitled Johnny Be Good, and it's a film from the 1980s starring Anthony Michael Hall, Uma Thurman and Robert Downey Jr. Now I saw that cast and I was like, I love all of these people and I want to see this. And to be honest, I know it kind of falls into that sort of teen genre that I'm a huge fan of, that was so prominent in the 1980s, but this was definitely a film that was, you know, it kind of really was at the bottom rung of that genre. I thought it wasn't very good. I thought, you know, any comedy that was attempted, you know, any quirky teen comedy elements sort of missed the mark. I thought it was just too like weird and wacky to actually be funny, and I know that Anthony Michael Hall was sort of drawing away from his usual stint as the sort of resident movie nerd. He was sort of more of a jock in this, and it was nice to see him as that, but I thought the plot was messy, everything was messy, and I didn't enjoy it. Sorry. Although I still love those people, so it doesn't really matter. Another movie on my list is Burlesque, starring Cher and Christina Aguilera. Now, I like Christina Aguilera and Cher. I think Cher is a phenomenal all-rounder. She's a legend, and I thought this film, definitely some poor acting by Christina Aguilera. I think she should maybe stick to music, and I know she got to showcase that in the film, but I didn't enjoy this movie. I thought it was quite cheesy, and I watched it on TV actually. I think somebody got it as a present for me on DVD, and I just never watched it, and then it happened to be on TV. I thought, okay, I'll watch it this time, and it didn't do it for me. I thought, you know, the concept was okay, it had some good musical elements in it, but I really wasn't thrilled by it, and it left me kind of feeling like I'd wasted my time when I finished it. Although, Cher, I love you, that hasn't changed. So yeah, The next movie on my list is a movie entitled Maximum Overdrive, and this is a adaptation of Cars. So rude. This is an adaptation of a Stephen King sort of novella, and it stars Emilio Estevez. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm crucifying this poor man. And it's sort of, yeah, it's a horror film, and it focuses around the fact that the trucks and electrical appliances in this town are, you know, sort of developing minds of their own, and they're going haywire. And it's really not going well for these people. They sort of end up like holed up in this sort of gas station cafe thing, as far as I can remember. It's been so long, I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong, but I just thought that, I mean, it was directed, and I think it was directed by Stephen King, and I love Stephen King, but please, please, please stick to writing, because you know, you can, this film is not, you know, famed as the best Stephen King adaptation, far from it, and I didn't enjoy it. I expected a lot from it, and because it's Stephen King, and I didn't get much. I still love you, Emilio, but again, I think this film was a little bit of a poor choice, and I've always said that it's hard to adapt a Stephen King story, and I guess that's definitely true, because this one just didn't come off. I thought it was just a poor attempt at a really good story, and it didn't resonate with me. It didn't stick, other than for all the wrong reasons, so sadly that's the case. Okay, didn't even realise, but that was the last one on my list. I'm not very good with numbers, but yeah, those are my top 10 worst movies I've ever seen, as far as I can recall and remember. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'm really sorry if I offended anyone with my choices. There's just my opinions. You guys could love these movies and it wouldn't matter, because everyone's opinions are valid, and these are just mine. If you have a list of your worst movies, you can comment down below. I love to see your opinions always, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.